Economic and Social Council of the United Nations, through the persistent leadership of Ambassador Kamal, that certain arrangements for non-governmental organization representation at the United Nations has found some implementing details. Even those details which do not give full presence at any time that NGOs want are now being frittered away by many instances of decreasing representation. I have just been in a meeting a little over 2 weeks ago with non-governmental organizations, of more than 100 of them, in a dialogue and conversation with Mr. Andrei Abramov, who is the new chief of the NGO branch of of DESA, Department of Economic and Social Affairs, where non-governmental organizations express their frustration at not only issues of physical access, the reduced number of passes where NGO voice must be heard at very important and crucial conferences and forums at the United Nations. They raised, for example, one particular instance where instead of NGOs with consultative relationship at the United Nations, what are being invited in these conferences are superstars. There's nothing about being against the superstars like Bono or many other people who have taken social causes that support the United Nations, but many of the NGOs believe that such representation does not fulfill the requirements of ECOSOC Resolution 1996/31, which borrows from the very Charter of the United Nations, Article 71, which provides for some access of non-governmental organizations. It does say may make arrangements for consultation with non-governmental organizations. I don't think it says non-governmental individuals or superstars, and therefore the consultative process must represent a greater constituency and not just a singular charismatic individual.
I just wanted to mention at this point that when we were going through the consultation in the 1990s, and I was the person who was charged with chairing that consultation, my hair was perfectly black. And it is that consultation which turned my hair white. And the hair turned white because I found that those countries which talk most much in support of NGOs are the ones who really do not like NGOs. And so you have this great talk, which is words about the importance of NGOs, etc., etc. But every time I made a proposal for better access or better participation, they found holes in that. And so those who were supporting were actually opposing. And so we sat down to try to analyze why are they opposing. And we found that the real reason was that they were scared of NGOs. They were scared that NGOs might get deeper access into decision making, first in the General Assembly, which they could still accept, but certainly not into the Security Council. And that is what they were scared of, that NGOs would progressively want to get closer and deeper into the decision-making system of the Security Council. And that they were not willing to allow under any circumstances whatsoever. And so we had about a dozen global conferences in the 1990s, and NGOs played a part, but they were always kept in a separate tent outside, so they could let off hot air and participate while not participating. And that continues to be the system, that you recognize that NGOs exist, but you don't want them to come too close into the building of the United Nations. And so my question to you, sir, again is, how can we improve this system? Because I think I can understand the governments not wanting to share power. That's part of their mandate, not to share power. But I don't think NGOs are making the proper effort to break into the system, because you are extremely powerful. You represent the majority of the population of the world. You have the most powerful tools at your disposal, which is information technology as a force multiplier. You have examples in which a single girl, Jodie Williams, was able to defend an alliance of the most powerful countries of the world in order to secure a treaty banning landmines. So you can do it, but you are not doing it. You somehow are keeping quiet and acquiescing in the fact that we are treating you as underprivileged slaves. Why are you acquiescing in this? Why can't you revolt? Why can't you use information technology to question the very basis of United Nations decision making as non-representative of the conscience of peoples? So I think part of the fault is yours.
It's a multi-pronged response that I would like to take. One response takes off from a historical perspective, that the way NGOs have presenced themselves at the United Nations and in many multilateral forums is that the NGOs have presented themselves as local activists. And therefore, the fear from governments is that, coming as they were from the very countries where they have the capability to feel the pulse of the people, when they come to an international fora, then they are able to expose the hypocrisy, what their governments are doing, which are quite different from what these governments say in international forums. And therefore, the fear is precisely because the non-governmental organizations come from the grassroots, able to represent the thinking and the knowledge of and action of people from the ground. Number two, another way of looking at it historically would be that the give and take of UN access by non-governmental organizations pretty much follows some of the major historical events in the world, so that the representation is either withdrawn, heightened, or even altogether made absent, precisely because, for example, in the period of decolonization, the non-governmental organizations during those periods were considered the subversive organizations that were there to topple the current establishment, and therefore they did not find immediate access to the United Nations. They were in the fringes. They were outside of the United Nations quadrangle. They would be in other offices and buildings across First Avenue, just like Church Center for the United Nations, where as we move into the anti-apartheid struggle, many of the African liberation movements who are now in government or who have found themselves in multilateral institutions were the very NGOs that were not given access. And then you move on to the anti-war movements during the Vietnam War era, and then you go to ongoing neo-colonial struggles, and then anti-globalization. And therefore, while non-governmental organizations have grown in the variety of capabilities, many of them even acting as consultants for governments. Precisely, that's why they want to be in consultative relation, because non-governmental organizations say we do have certain expertise on very specific areas and we can offer them. And might it be that not only can we consult with you, United Nations, that you might also consult with us. And so there is a historical perspective in the yes and no response to whether non-governmental organizations are successful or not. CoNGO as an organization does not take specific positions on substantive issues. The non-governmental organizational committees on disarmament, on peace, on human rights are the NGO formations that speak to the substantive issues. CoNGO, in many ways, speaks very directly to the issue of access. This afternoon, we go for the first round.